There are some stories that don't begin with miracles or thunder from heaven. They begin quietly, in ordinary places, with ordinary people. The story of Esther is one of those stories. It is a story about courage that grows in silence, about faith when God seems hidden, about standing up at the exact moment it matters most. And interestingly, in the entire book of Esther, God's name is never mentioned once, yet his presence is everywhere. This is not a story of prophets or kings chosen by God. It is the story of a young woman taken from obscurity and placed into a position she never asked for, so that she could change the fate of an entire people. This is the story of Esther. Our story begins in the vast Persian Empire, one of the most powerful empires the world had ever known. It stretched across much of the ancient world, from India to Ethiopia. At the center of this empire sat King Xerxes, also known as Ahasuerus. Xerxes lived in luxury beyond imagination. Gold cups, marble pillars, endless feasts. He ruled with absolute power, and his word was law. One day, King Xerxes decided to throw a massive celebration, not just for a day or a week, but for 6 full months. This was a public display of wealth, power, and pride. At the end of those 6 months, the king hosted one final 7-day feast for everyone in the capital city of Susa. Wine flowed freely. The atmosphere was loud and indulgent. And as the days passed, the king became drunk, not just on wine, but on his own importance. On the final day of the feast, King Xerxes made a decision that would change everything. He ordered his servants to bring in Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown, so that he could show her beauty to his guests. This wasn't an invitation. It was a command. But Queen Vashti refused. The Bible doesn't explain her reasons, but they're easy to imagine. She may have felt disrespected, objectified, or humiliated. Whatever the reason, she chose dignity over obedience, and that act of defiance shocked the entire court. The king was furious. His advisors warned him that if Vashti's refusal went unpunished, women throughout the empire might begin to stand up for themselves as well. So King Xerxes made an example of her. Queen Vashti was removed from her position and banished from the palace. Just like that, the queen was gone. After some time passed, the king's anger cooled, and reality set in. The throne beside him was empty. So his advisors came up with a plan. They suggested a kingdom-wide search for beautiful young women who would be brought into the palace. Each would spend time preparing, and eventually the king would choose a new queen. Among those taken to the palace was a young Jewish woman named Esther. Esther was an orphan, raised by her older cousin Mordecai. They were part of the Jewish people, living in exile under Persian rule. Esther was beautiful, yes, but more importantly, she was kind, humble, and thoughtful. Mordecai warned her not to reveal her Jewish identity. In a foreign empire, being different could be dangerous, so Esther kept her background secret. Inside the palace, Esther stood out, not because she tried to, but because of who she was. She listened, she showed respect, she followed advice, and everyone who met her seemed to like her. Eventually, the day came when Esther was brought before the king. Out of all the women in the palace, King Xerxes chose Esther. She was crowned Queen of Persia. An orphaned Jewish girl had become the most powerful woman in the empire. But even now, no one knew who she really was. Not long after Esther became queen, Mordecai uncovered a plot. 2 palace guards were planning to assassinate the king. Mordecai told Esther. Esther told the king and gave Mordecai credit. The plot was stopped. The guards were executed, and the event was recorded in the royal history books. But Mordecai received no reward, at least not yet. Around this time, a man named Haman rose to power. He was promoted to a position second only to the king himself. Everyone was commanded to bow to Haman as he passed. Everyone except Mordecai. Mordecai refused to bow. This enraged Haman. But instead of punishing Mordecai alone, Haman decided to destroy all Jewish people in the empire. When he discovered Mordecai was Jewish, his hatred grew even deeper. So Haman devised a plan. He cast lots, essentially rolling dice, to choose a date for the destruction of the Jews. Then he went to the king. Haman told the king that there was a certain group of people whose customs were different and who did not fully obey the king's laws. He never said they were Jewish. He offered to pay a large sum of money into the royal treasury if the king would approve their destruction. The king agreed, without asking questions. A decree was written, sealed, and sent throughout the empire. On a specific day, every Jewish man, woman, and child was to be killed. There was no appeal, no exception. The empire celebrated. But among the Jewish people there was terror, mourning, and despair. Mordecai put on sackcloth and ashes, a public sign of grief. When Esther heard about it, she was confused. Mordecai sent word explaining everything. Then he asked her to do something unthinkable. He asked her to go to the king and beg for mercy. But there was a problem. Anyone who approached the king without being summoned could be executed on the spot unless the king chose to spare them. And Esther had not been summoned for 30 days. This was a death sentence either way. At first, Esther hesitated, but Mordecai sent her a message that would define the entire story. Do not think that because you are in the king's palace, you alone will escape. If you remain silent, help will arise from another place. And who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Those words changed everything. Esther understood what was at stake. This wasn't just about her life, it was about her people. So she made a decision. She told Mordecai to gather the Jews and fast for 3 days. She and her attendants would do the same. Then she said the words that define courage. I will go to the king, and if I perish, I perish. After 3 days, Esther put on her royal robes and approached the king's throne. The room went silent. This was the moment. The king looked at her, and instead of anger, he extended his golden scepter. Esther was spared. The king asked her what she wanted, even offering up to half his kingdom. But Esther didn't rush. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet. They attended. At the banquet, the king again asked what she wanted. But once more, Esther delayed. She invited them to a second banquet the next day. Haman left that night feeling proud. But when he saw Mordecai still refusing to bow, his rage returned. Haman went home furious. His wife and friends suggested a solution. They told him to build a massive gallows, 75 feet high, and ask the king for permission to hang Mordecai on it. Haman loved the idea. The gallows were built that very night. But that same night, something unexpected happened. The king couldn't sleep. Unable to rest, the king ordered the royal records to be read aloud. And by chance, of all the stories, they read the account of Mordecai saving the king's life. The king was shocked. He asked, what reward was given to Mordecai? The answer, nothing. At that moment, Haman entered the court to ask permission to execute Mordecai. Before he could speak, the king asked him, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Thinking the king meant him, Haman suggested royal robes, a crown, and a public parade. The king smiled. "Excellent," he said. "Do that for Mordecai." Haman was forced to honor the very man he planned to kill. At the second banquet, the king again asked Esther what she wanted. This time she spoke. She revealed the truth. She told the king she was Jewish. She told him her people had been condemned to death, and she pointed to Haman as the one responsible. The king was furious. He stormed out. When he returned, Haman was begging Esther for his life. The king misunderstood the scene, and his anger exploded. Haman was arrested. One of the servants mentioned the gallows Haman had built, and the king gave the order. Haman was executed on his own gallows. But the danger wasn't over. The original decree could not be revoked, so a new decree was issued. The Jewish people were given permission to defend themselves. When the day came, the Jews were victorious. Their enemies were defeated. Mordecai was elevated to high position. Esther remained queen. What was meant for destruction became deliverance. To remember what happened, the Jewish people established a celebration called Purim. It is a feast of joy, gratitude, and remembrance. A reminder that even when hope seems lost, rescue may already be in motion. The story of Esther teaches us powerful lessons. Courage often requires risk. Silence can be as dangerous as action. Identity matters, even when it's hidden. Pride leads to downfall, and timing is never accidental. Esther wasn't born powerful. She became courageous when it mattered most. And her story reminds us, you may be where you are for such a time as this. If this lesson inspired you, kindly like, share, and subscribe to get more Bible stories like this. Thank you, and see you in the next one.